Welcome, travelers. I'm Josh.
And I'm Lewanika, and this is Tabletop Journeys, where we will be your not-so-humble guides on the quest for RPG adventures.
All right, welcome everybody back to. I say that so loud so that Michael wakes up over there. I think that's
always.
Welcome back to our discussion now on Chapter 3 of the 2024 DMG, the DM's Toolbox. Which, as I said at the end of Chapter 2, I think that this is the chapter that I am most interested in discussing. Michael, I won't steal your thunder. What was the comment that you made as we were talking about this just before we started recording?
So, as a long-term GM. This is where the book starts for me. I feel like this is the chapter where I can absolutely see myself sitting down to prepare an adventure or a campaign. It is chock full of useful information, improvisational things, and just like prep. So yeah, I have a lot of positives about this chapter.
Yep. I think for me, it touches on a lot of things that then I can take as an experienced DM and say, oh, I know exactly what I want to do with that, and now spin off into a direction. It maybe not as useful to a new DM for that reason, because I think that the information can be a little superficial
and overwhelming. There's so much of it.
There's so much of it. Yeah.
I do have one quibble about the presentation, but I want to start with the artwork, because I mentioned in our last video how I loved that Venger artwork with Tiamat in the crystal ball. Yeah. Eberron is by far my favorite official setting of WotC's. I absolutely love Eberron.
Yeah.
This one starts with a full page Eberron. I don't like it. Why does it have the spooky space kook from Scooby-Doo in the middle of this artwork? Like, Eberron is such a rich tapestry, and that's what they went with. I mean, I couldn't recreate it. The art itself is good. I just think the direction on this page is bad.
Come on, though. A monster called a Blob of Annihilation is a fantastically named monster. Oh, come on.
What? No, it's a no for me, dog.
All right, man. that's a face.
I didn't know we had Randy Jackson on the show. And oddly, I would have thought it had been me. And I would have thought it had been me, but I am glad. I'm happy to share the stage. Yeah.
Simon Cowell, what do you think?
Hang on, I don't think my shirt's tight enough for that.
Yeah, right.
Look. I'm reading digitally. I'm not seeing it full color on the page. So quite honestly, again, I'm reading digitally. I don't see it full color on the page in the way art really truly deserves to be displayed. So maybe I'm not seeing it as it should be in all of its glory. It really just looks like a drab, rainy photo of steampunk England with a blue weird cloud in the background. I read what it was supposed to be about. Mm-hmm. Nothing about it said to me, this is Eberron. So I kind of concur with Michael on that. I don't have a problem with the art in and of itself.
Right. No.
It just really doesn't tell me anything about the setting it claims to be from.
Wait, you said that it looks like steampunk England, though.
Yes.
I think far off.
That's not far off.
It has robots and trains, but those are cool. I love this chapter. One of the first things we talk about is a chase. Because that is something, if you go online and you look for advice on RPGs or D&D specifically, so many people are like, I want to do a chase, or I did a chase and it fell flat. I haven't actually tried these rules, but reading through them, I think this could work.
Sure. Yeah. It's a skill challenge. They should have called it that.
Yeah. This goes back to what we said a couple videos ago. They seem to have an aversion to using the common parlance of the gaming hobby. We all know what this is, and they want to avoid using it, even though they're likely the first group to really popularize it in the game that shall not be named 4E. It's like they're afraid to bring up Shades, one of the few sparkling good points of the game that fell flat. You know, there are a lot of good things that came out of that game that I now, in retrospect, for whatever reason, it didn't come across when I played it because of reasons, whatever. I'm not here to talk about those books right now, but they seem to have an aversion to calling things by the names we actually use them by.
Yeah.
And they don't even take the time to give it its own title. So we are learning a new title to call the thing. If you don't want to call it skill challenges, call it whatever you want to do. This is how you do hullabaloo. I'm fine with that. Let's call it hullabaloo. Give it a title so it's something that we can anchor. Somebody can search for this on the internet. You can't search chases and 5e and come up with exclusively this. We need a title for the mechanics they're talking about so it is searchable for people learning the game or directing other people to the game. And I think that's a big miss. And this is the third time we've talked about it as we've been reviewing chapter by chapter. And I think that's when we're all done, for all the good things we're going to say about it, that's going to be one of the overall misses for the book as a whole.
I have a big
good
one
mechanics that they left at, they refused to title well.
Yeah. Reskinning. We have a whole chapter on reskinning monsters, but they don't call it reskinning. But that's what everyone calls it.
That's what everyone calls it. Yeah.
Yep. They keep doing it.
Yep.
4. Yeah, I love all different parts of this, and I'm right with Josh. This is exactly where I'm going to go to build things. This is exactly how I'm going to plan my adventures. I have a real good sense as an adventure writer, freelancing and whatnot else, how to structure adventures, when to put certain types of things in. When I'm in the 5e space, this is good bones.
Yeah.
I've got things that I can do that I can then reskin and flavor the way I need to do so in order to make it fit the theme of whatever adventure I'm writing or whatever campaign I'm planning, whatever environment an event is taking place in. And they do a great job of explaining that in here, in the creating of this or that section. And there's all kinds of different creation parts of this chapter, creating a background, creating a creature, creating a magic item, creating a spell. It's all in here, right? So, and they talk multiple times about, hey, if you're creating here's the thing. We explain what the components of the thing are. Here's how you take an existing one and change it to match your needs. And finally, if you're making your own whole cloth, here are the things you should consider. Here are the things you should watch out for. And here's some extra guidance. And they do that pretty well for just about all of those. Now, they don't provide examples beyond that, to Michael's consistent point.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's a page count factor issue or not, or it's that trying to thread the needle between being prescriptive and limiting in that way that I have mentioned. I think that was true when I said it in the earlier chapters. I think it's less true here. But again, then there's the thought of, if they show us an example of that, then why isn't it in their other book?
Yeah.
I don't know how to square that circle.
How impactful would that have been, though, if we actually had like a design diary page of, we created this magic item. Here's our thought process. Here's why it is common, uncommon. Here's how we did that. Give us one example from later in the book. Walk us through your process. Yeah. And now I'm set for life on doing my own.
Absolutely.
This is good, but it's still too abstract. I'm still going to make mistakes. I'm still going to give them stuff that's overpowered.
Yeah. I'm actually going to disagree with you. I don't think it's good. I'm going to, and Lewanika, I very rarely will come right out and say that you are wrong about, that's not true. I say you're wrong all the time. I think the creating background.
Are we talking about just today?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. I think the creating background, creating creature, and creating magic item chapter pages are bad. They are super superficial. I mean, the creating a background section is 100 words, maybe tops,
Yep.
And I get that backgrounds as a concept are kind of de-emphasized in 2024, sort of, but I still think that it needed more. I think it needed a lot more.
So
I don't think that. I think they threw it in there because they wanted to go ahead and throw it like, hey, DMs, you can go ahead and do this, but they don't.
I think the way they want them, because all the future source books are going to have thematic ones. They're going to be, this adventure is going to have these backgrounds and these magic items and these spells. Sure. And so they just want to set you up for that, because you can do your own. But if you buy ours, it's going to be in there. But again, if there had been an example, take the Acolyte. Here's how we built the Acolyte. Here's how you could build your own. I just think every one of those, if they had an example from the game, would have been so much better than they
totally. I'm going to put our content creation hat on for just a second and say the amount of time that we have worried about the mechanics of spells and creating new spells, and they cracked that nut in a third of a page.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but no, this is not enough.
Well, if all your spells deal damage, that's fine. But if you have a spell that does a thing, how do you quantify the thing to damage?
Yeah.
So I'm going to put on, I'm going to recommend to the audience, this is where we all put on our tinfoil hats. This is where we turn on our
I have tinfoil underwear. Does that count?
Yep.
Okay.
Generally, it really depends on where your brain is, Michael.
You said it, not me.
This is where we turn on our scrambler because we want to make sure that that Big WotC's not listening, right?
Big WotC.
The reality is, in 2014, none of the things they created for the game matched their own creation rules and mechanics.
Yeah.
Or most of them didn't. They are not, and I would surmise, and famously Fireball is one of them, right? It's a legacy thing. We can't, and we're not going to change it. They come out and say that about that. I would surmise that the reason why they don't do an example with a thing that already exists is many of the things that already exist are not following these rules.
Follow this. Yeah.
They're using these rules to help other people build things that don't break their game.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we don't have those. And that's my conspiracy theory.
I don't think that's conspiracy theory. I think you're dead on.
I mean, so given the choice between not publishing rules and publishing bad ones, why would they decide to go ahead and publish bad ones? Like that's what continues to confound me.
Because as much as they're going to get lambasted for whatever they do, not publishing the how to make it, they get lambasted worse.
I think people are really clamoring for how to go ahead and make a background. They make it pretty self-explanatory.
Well, I think there are a lot of people coming into the hobby that's the part they love, that creation part of making their own worlds. So giving them at least tacit permission to do it by saying, here are the rules, you remove the, am I allowed to do that? Yeah, you can.
Yeah. And in relation to backgrounds, Josh, I agree with you. There's not a lot there. It's 100 words or less. But to be frank, to Michael's point, I changed it. I went to Frank.
I know. I was ready, and you zigged and swerved on me.
I got to mix it up. Backgrounds are so narratively light now.
Yeah.
Right. They removed the ribbon ability that went with them. And part of the problem with 2014 was some were ribbon abilities, some were actual legitimate mechanical abilities. There was no consistency there. That's a bad way to do that. It was not consistent, which made some things optimum choices. So by removing that, they did not replace it with a stronger narrative, mechanically supported narrative element. And so it has literally been, this is the vehicle by which you add your points and slap a title to it, and then you can attribute whatever you want to the title. That's literally all this is. And they just told you how to build. Really, if they had spent 300 words to describe how to build a superficial thing, I'd have been annoyed with them for have wasted so many words. So there really is no way to gild that particular lily because the thing itself is not fantastic. So their backgrounds, as the background guy, no longer have the narrative weight I wish backgrounds had. Therefore, building a background is really a mechanical thing.
I will say page 57, the traits for creatures. I love that. I don't know if that's new. Cool. I don't remember seeing it. That's great. That is cool. So good.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but again,
we talked about balance monsters before they got through the first 6 of those.
When we get to chapter 7, we will once again talk about the balance between the information and the list of things. Mm-hmm. They have a page of traits and half a page on how to make a creature. Now, what does that tell you about what's the most important part about a creature? Those are the traits.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's absolutely not true. So
they're the most flavorful, though. Again, this should be called the reskinning. If you want to reskin a goblin, give it a trait. If you want to reskin a dragon, give it a trait. And
give it a trait.
You want to make it tougher, give it a trait. Like that. Yeah. All right. So they follow up those crappy subchapters with kind of, I think, what might be one of my favorite subchapters in this chapter, the curses and magical contagions.
Yeah, I thought that was super cool.
This is really so great. This is really good. So much in here. It's just fun. It's just
good,
really fun,
stuff. Adventure stuff.
Absolutely.
I'm going to make an adventure based on one of those. I'm going to make a story arc based on one of those.
Yeah.
These are really good things.
Yeah, and I mean fun names too. Sewer plague, sight rot,
cackle. Oh, is it cackle plague?
Cackle fever. Yeah.
Cackle fever or whatever.
I thought that was great. I thought it was really important that they talk about player death. I think that was a really good use of page space.
And well described. I love the fact that if this doesn't have to be the end of the story. They can wake up in jail. They can wake up in a lower plane and have to fight their way back to life.
Yeah.
There's all different ways to do it. The TPK is not the end of a campaign, or doesn't have to be the end of the campaign.
Right.
And if you as a GM, if you happen to accidentally get into one, or you get into one, now you've got some good bones to build a short or longer arc to get them back to where they need to be.
Yep.
They fight their way out of the lower plane. They get to a plane, petition a deity to bring them back so they can finish the mission, and they come back out. Now, they may have went down at level 4, but they come back out at level 7, and now all of a sudden they're back at that original fight at level 7. Let them refight the original fight 3 levels higher, having fought their way to prove they deserve the chance to win.
Yep.
Bob's your uncle. You now have a great campaign story that I can almost all but guarantee your players will forever talk about. The time we fought our way out of hell, fought a court case with the gods, and went back and whooped that bad guy's posterior.
Yeah.
That's a hot story arc.
Yeah,
that's why we play the game.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that I've been playing for a very long time. I don't think anything like this has been in any DMG I've ever seen.
Nope.
And quite honestly, even for all the other game systems I've played, I don't recall seeing this kind of guidance in any other GM guide here.
Yeah.
I hear lots of talking heads talk about it.
Yeah.
But
even the next section when they come right out and say that a dungeon doesn't need to be a dungeon.
Right.
Like that again is one of those things that we've known. We experienced dungeon masters have been able to go ahead and say, "Oh, I can use the dungeon aesthetic and make it exploration. I can make it a castle. It doesn't have to be, it
doesn't have to be underground labyrinth
with an Umber Hulk chasing after me."
Right.
Tommy Plaza was not a dungeon.
Yeah,
but he did all the D&D things in that building.
That's actually a really great example that I'd never thought about before. That's fantastic. Well done.
We have a page on doors.
It's almost Christmas time. I had to bring it up at some point.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, fair.
So. I thought, again, doors are important. They're very common. I don't know that we needed a whole page.
There's
also
more.
I would have liked at least the nugget of don't lock anything important behind a door that may not be opened.
Well, they say something about that.
They do.
They mention it later, but it's not in this. It's not indoors. It's talking about.
That's in the adventure.
It did mention that.
Okay, Random Adventures.
Yeah.
And then this is just a DM tip. Secret doors. If you are going to put secret doors in your dungeon, let the players find one that's already open early.
Yep.
So then they're like, oh, it's just, it was left open. The goblin ran through it. There's a body, whatever. Yeah. So that primes them that, this place might have them. We should be checking for them.
Yep.
All right.
Agreed.
Moving on.
Or
dungeon
have
quirks.
them show a goblin run through one just so they know they're there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Dungeon quirks are amazing. I love them.
Yes. That's one of the things that just reading through it, I'm like, so many ideas.
So many ideas. Yep. Totally agree. Fabulous. One of those things that I will definitely bookmark and use over and over again, because the quirks are just fun to roll out again, even if you're not in a dungeon. Like,
Right.
I'm just going to pick one randomly here. Wherever you are was actually intended as a tomb. Imagine stumbling across something in the middle of the woods and you're like, what even is this? And like, now there's a story that's involved there, and what is it that they find and all that kind of thing. Like, yeah, love it. Yep.
Environmental effects.
I love
again,
the environmental effects. Like,
Yep.
it blew me away. Again, I am so angry. Now that we have the way to do all these things, the ability for the ranger to fix that for his party, the ability for a ranger to shine is exceptionally limited based on the changes to that character class now. Now, maybe it'll come out in a future subclass.
Yeah.
But really, you finally give us what should have been here all along.
Yeah.
And you took it away.
My one wish is that they tied this into lair actions. I feel like they could have co-opted those two things, and I think that in general lair actions are suppressed in 2024 anyway. So it's like, it's like,
well, until we get the monster manual,
until we get the monster manual, we're not going to know. But
I know.
It would have been,
but
nice
this would have been
to
a great place
here.
Yep.
I really like that. Dwarf with a shotgun. All right. So there's nothing funnier than a cleric casting silence when they have a shotgun. That's always a fun time. So I know there is some in the zeitgeist in the talking heads that, firearms in D&D don't mesh. But I would argue that it goes back to the original game. Like, one of the first modules Gary wrote was finding an alien spaceship, and it had like robots and laser guns. So it's part of the game. I like that it's here, even if you never want to use it. I like the fact that this is a thing that you can do. Again, it's just given tacit permission to game masters to be like, you want to put a shotgun in your game? It fits. Go for it.
Have at it. Yep.
It really does allow Eberron to be steampunky-er by having a blunderbuss or what have you. Flintlock pistols, Starlock pistols, and all these other fantastical things, and semi-real world things. I love the fact that here's the mechanism by which you can gauge your game's level of technology.
Yep. Agreed.
Hazards.
Flipping through.
Hazards, a lot of fun. I got a boatload of uses for hazards now.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, all over it.
I would have liked more, but I totally see this is going to be a supplement. It's probably already on DM's Guild. There's probably someone who's already got 100 hazards for your game.
Totally,
This is one of my slight quibbles with hazards, and then I think later with traps or poisons. I don't think they should be alphabetical. I think they should be tiered. So these are all first tier. These are all second tier. Just because it's a little harder to navigate. It's not a big deal, but especially if there were more, it would have been more important. But I would have liked all those by tier or by level.
It's the monster manual problem. Yeah, it's like, do you put monsters alphabetically so you can find them easier, or do you put them by CR so you can find them easier?
Right.
Well, on a digital tool, what they do is they have an appendices digitally where they show you all of them grouped by tier, so you can just click on the link, brings you to the page. So you can do that. I have not actually looked that far down in the PDF to see if they did that with these. I don't.
Probably not. I would imagine so, because it's not a table.
Their appendices, tracking sheets, maps, and lore glossary. So the lore glossary you can do, but something like that, no. And it's unfortunate. I agree with you. I would prefer to have them that way. I think also from a teaching perspective, if you want to see all that lower tier stuff so you can see how things advance as you're reading it, I think that builds a deeper understanding. So I think if where there are other chapters, I think they did a great job of threading the needle of who and to where they want to bring this material to. I think their organizational structure as it relates to these particular areas takes away from that.
Yep.
I did want to talk about something I felt was absolutely missing from this section, and it's one of the things that I absolutely loved about the 2014 game. It came up in the Eberron setting. Shout out to Keith Baker and Eberron. And it was brought full canon in Tasha's, and that is sidekicks, right? I love sidekicks. And if you're going to have a section on NPCs, perfect area to put in sidekicks. But what did they do? They said sidekicks never advance in levels. Or they said NPCs never advance in levels. They'll hang out with the party. They'll do whatever, but they never advance in levels. So all the glory that was the hirelings of first and second edition, the followers of third edition, and the sidekicks that we eventually got in fifth edition is at the very least omitted from the main portion of the game vis-a-vis printing of this book. Now, that means even if it comes out in some future supplement, it'll be exactly what it was, not well supported on D&D Beyond. Therefore, it makes it harder for people to do, which means it's harder to have in a game. And even though I loved that mechanic, used it to great effect in my games, it was a pain in the tuchus to create within D&D Beyond. It could be done, but it was difficult. You basically had to customize. You had to pick an NPC, customize it by giving it its name, and add the different things to it, and manually alter all of the abilities as the sidekick advanced. And for me, you can create a character, you can create a Patreon, you can create a faction, you can create a sidekick. I don't think the programming for any one of those things is significantly more difficult, and they're all, in my opinion, significantly less difficult than the actual character creation. Mm-hmm. So why wouldn't they just do that? It bugs me that it's missing.
Yep. What about Marks of Prestige? So this was one of the chapters that I was like, I just don't know how I'm going to use this. You know, it didn't really strike me one way or the other. I was kind of like, this is whatever. You know,
I liked this. I liked the Marks of Prestige. I liked the Renown and the supernatural gifts. I wish those three things were put together. Because if you remember a little over a year ago, Josh, we did the episode on rewards beyond XP.
Right.
And all of these things were exactly what we were talking about, that to a point.
Yep.
These are all rewards other than XP and other than leveling. So if you're playing a game where it's like, look, I just don't want to send them $15 billion in cash for beating the monster, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to give them this. And I thought it was really good information. So if you're playing levels 1 through 4, where later on they talk about what kind of adventures and what type of campaign art you do at 1 through 4, you've saved your small neck of the woods and you're given a thing. This is all before you can get a bastion at level 5, right?
It's
so
like
1 through
Skyrim
4,
when
you
can
do
become
a thing.
Thane. Exactly. Yeah.
Your reward is you get a mark of prestige around level 2 or level 3, so you're important. You keep going at level 4, they grant you some land, and then level 5, hey, I'm building a bastion now. And now you are the guy with the prestige, you are the guy that just has some land, and your bastion is the thing you just built on that land or that place you just took over.
Yep.
I think there's a really nice narrative through line. I wish those 3 sections were together. So you could run that through line, and then, to Michael's point, an example of how that works.
Yep.
And then you say, and now the next thing beyond these rewards is let the players work on their bastions.
You know what?
And
much
I
like
think that is a much better one.
Much like you were wrong earlier, I am man enough to admit I think I'm wrong about this. I think you're right. Yeah. All right. What else in this chapter struck you? Like,
I like the mobs thing. Again, I'm not one that says you need to speed up combat a whole lot. I think as long as combat's fun, it doesn't matter how long it takes. But I do like the idea, you're getting attacked by 8 zombies rather than rolling 8 attacks, because I am going to start cheating behind the screen just to make things go faster. Yeah. Okay, 2 of them hit you, 8 damage, move on. That is something I actually kind of liked.
I liked the mobs chapter. The mob results table was confusing to me. Like I was like, this is really weird.
If I can,
really weird.
If I can, I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit here and shout out to something we've done here on the channel. I love the discussion we're having about mobs. I think the math involved in it is not faster at the table and not easier.
No.
And because of that, I like the minion rules that I use, we wrote, and we're selling on Drive-Thru RPG are significantly better for exactly the same reasons. We are solving the same problem in 2 entirely different ways. And I do think our method is faster at the table for a GM to run. And that's so I love the fact that they were having the discussion. To me, this is a great advertisement to hashtag call your boys TTJ.
Yep. My comment on this should have let us write your minion rules.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just call them minions too. I love minions from 4th edition.
It's a great name.
Minions are great.
But
again,
I'd love to claim ownership of that. And in fact, I specifically, I even call out when I did it. This is my version of the minions from the way MCDM and 4th edition did them, and making it a 5e that's faster to run at the table method. I basically Frankenstein my own faster way to run it, and I've been doing it for years, long before I talked about it in the video, long before we printed the rules. So I've got 3 campaigns and close to 6 years, 7 years of running this way of experience in playtesting to say that my minion rules are pretty smooth at the table. People are generally amazed how I run a 12-person game digitally and have very detailed combats and can move that fast. It's because I've always used minions.
Yep.
That's why.
So, Michael, what'd you think about the flump on the settlement tracker? Is that
again? So, not a huge fan of the little chibi art.
Yep. Yep.
I wanted to mention the NPC tracker. Like, I do like the section on NPCs. Again, I think that's something that new DMs could struggle with. I think it's helpful the way that kind of spends. There's a lot of meat on NPCs, but that NPC tracker is awful. You do not need a full page for every NPC.
No.
Like that should be a quarter page, maybe even a half page. And then if you have a really important one, maybe give them the full page. But I mean, I know it's a quibble. It's not a big deal, but I would never use a full page.
This NPC tracker doesn't do what it claims to do, right? If you have to write down the stat block that it's based on, and then the stat block alterations. So if I'm looking at the tracker saying, oh, right, now I need to go look at the bandit stat block. Okay, now what did I do to the bandit stat? Oh, okay, I gave it extra charisma.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's
so here's what I would do with this, right? If I felt I needed to use that sheet, and I don't feel I need that. If I felt I needed that,
right,
I would bring them both up I would bring it up as a PDF. I would snippet the stat block I need, and I would paste it as an image over the section where that information needs to be. So it's on the page. The only reason I need that full page is that bottom chunk is going to be the stat block itself. And then in the top, in that middle chunk, I'm going to write, these are the changes I made to the stat block below.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to write a bunch of RP notes or role-playing notes. I'll note how the voice I'm going to use or the inflection I'm going to give. You know, this is the nervous tick that NPC X, Y, or Z. I think the discussion is great. I think the sheet leaves a lot to be desired. Yep. Honestly, I couldn't count the number of better NPC sheets that are available on Drive-Thru or DM's Guild. They are aplenty, right? Yep. As far as what you need to do. And I would also say that what you need varies depending on where that NPC is in the campaign.
Yep.
You walk into town, you walk into Barrelstown, your party goes in there for the first time. They may or may not ever be there again. They may not even stay there. And they meet the bartender, the blacksmith, and they meet the magic shop guy. None of those need to be a page.
Yep.
They are a name. They are a voice. They are a quirk.
They are a random chart entry for, boom, boom. Oh, you're meeting the blacksmith. Okay, here. Yeah. And then if they become important, you got to, I don't know that the book is necessarily saying not to do that, but I just, quibble, but I don't care for it. The settlement actually the poison, again, that's great. Love it. I just want them by severity, not by alphabetical.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. I hear you. What about the traps? That's kind of how the chapter ends too. So like that's
Again,
I think traps for me falls in the same way we've talked about hazards and talked about the other things. I wish it was organized differently. I like what's there. I think it's okay. I think they go long on describing the opening scene to Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'm sorry, the rolling ball trap. Yeah. And and I think they do a good job of really explaining, hey, there are some traps. If you see it, that's good enough. That's it. You saw it. You don't ever have to roll. The roll was you saw it. You can easily avoid it. I liked that kind of direction because that is definitely how I tend to run it at my games.
Yeah.
Once the first person sees it, nobody else has to roll again. The idea is to say, here's the obstacle that slowed you down. Now, me personally, and I don't know if they said it specifically this way, I don't do traps like that in my adventures unless the idea is you're in a time crunch. You have to get from point A to point B within a specific amount of time. Here's this trap. Now, if they start saying, I need to look for traps, I'm going to say, are you looking fast or slow? If you're looking fast, here's your difficulty. If you're looking slowly and carefully, if you're moving tactically, here's your difficulty, but it's taking you twice as long. Yeah. Now, I'm going to add more bad guys to the other end, or I'm going to add something else to the other end. And that way, it is not about whether the trap does a bunch of damage, exhausts a bunch of resources. It's about the tactical decision you made. Did you risk the damage to get through it quickly so you fight less guys on that end? Or did you take the time to make sure all your I's were dotted and T's crossed, and now you have a bigger threat on the other end?
Yeah, I think thematically traps are like a holdover. Like I actually like the idea of traps in a dungeon. But execution, I don't know that they play well at the table. Like Lewanika's point, especially if they're a gotcha. Oh, you didn't look. Oh, you fell. You take damage. Like that's not fun.
No.
So I'm more likely to use them similar to like what he was saying, where you know that there's a trap in front of you. It's just a variable that you now have to deal with because there's a stone rolling behind you, or you're being chased by something. What are you going to do? It's a choice they now have to take into account of. It's not just, I got you. You didn't roll a thing, or you did. It's like, okay, you rolled 20. Okay. You disabled it. Like, I don't know. I will say maybe it's a failing of me. I've very rarely had a trap that has been fun at the table for me or my players.
I do not want to spoil it for any of my players that listen to this show, but I will say that traps do factor into my exploration tier a lot, specifically for specific reasons, and that's all that I will say. I do think that that the real golden nugget in the trap section is that somehow they reduced, the 13-page trap chapter in Xanathar is down to 3 sentences in a roll table on how to build traps. I mean, who knew building traps was so easy?
Yeah. I mean, they're all the same. They're just flavored.
Exactly. Yeah, they're just flavored.
You have your how you find them condition, your triggering condition, and then the results of what happens. And it's just
the best trap I ever, as a player, I ever encountered, and I can't remember the game, and I believe it was probably Marty who ran this for me back in the day. And so we're talking second edition days. We didn't have to find the trap. An NPC who had been there before, basically the NPC we were sent to this dungeon to locate, bring back safely, or help, was in a trap. They had fell in a punji pit. They were stuck on the pit. So we had to find a way to get down 20 feet to them without hurting ourselves, get them back up. So that was the rescue mission. The trap was there, but it wasn't because we were being sprung on the trap. That became the encounter. Right. We had to calm that person down, all the role play stuff, or they would do more damage to themselves and possibly kill themselves because they're panicking. We had to then get down and rescue them without hurting ourselves and hurting them more, as well as get them out and then heal them.
And that adds a flavor,
brilliant trap
to that dungeon. Like the fact that it's there and it was meaningful, but it didn't actually, like, I think that's a really good execution of a trap, but it's not really a trap at that point. Not really. You know what I mean? Like it's an
encounter.
It's an encounter.
It's a hazard encounter. It's a hazard / role play encounter. It bridges the two peers.
And just think, you can also now use traps in your chase tier. Also, if you're running a chase, right? If I'm chasing the bad guy through his castle, and all of a sudden he turns around, hits the button on the wall closes, and then a gigantic pit of spikes reveals, how, I don't have to worry about accidentally falling into the pit of spikes, but now I need to contend with the pit of spikes because why does it have to be snakes, right? That kind of thing. Like that's so. So I think I was being a little snarky earlier when I said how they reduced it down, but I think at the end of the day, you're right. Like traps, the storyteller is what brings the narrative to the trap. It's not, the It's like what Sean Merwin and Teo say all the time. You know, the game is the adventure, right? The story, you know, that's the, you know, it's, you got to add the story onto it. You know, the game is not the mechanics. The game is the adventure. You know, you know, yeah,
absolutely. So I think that's
That's
much
it.
the end
That's
of
pretty much
chapter
it.
3, right?
Yeah,
That's it. We're out. See
We're
ya.
out. All right.
No,
So yeah, we're gonna take a step aside. We're gonna change our clothes before we do chapter 4. You know, it's a right because we're done for tonight.
Right. I'm gonna have a big scar.
Yeah, it's you, right? You know, yeah.
Apocalyptic future Mad Max.
Right. Yeah. So pleasure's always, gentlemen. Nice
we
to
don't
see you.
need another hero.
But yeah, we're going to be kind of filtering these through. We'll be sitting down to go ahead and talk chapter 4 and beyond soon here. So please leave us comments down below. Let us know how you're liking the series here. You know, as always, please subscribe, hit the notification bell. You want to make sure you hear the rest of them when chapter 4 does come out here sometime in the ambiguous future. So yeah.
I would also add, please let us know your questions and comments. Did we leave something out? Did we drop the ball on something over chapters 1 through 3? Is there something specific in chapter 4, 5, 6, and more?
Right. Heck, if there's a magic item that you want us to talk about or something like that.
Yeah, we're trying to do like a high level overview, but we will deep dive if there are questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If we get enough questions, we would be happy to do a question and answer episode at the end of this to just kind of have that out and talk these things through, because we are really here to support gaming, support role playing. It's less about the company and more about the players and the GMs out there, the DMs out there. We want to make sure there's a great growth in our hobby. So if we can answer questions and help this book become more useful, then we've done something pretty cool here today.
We'll do it. So, all right. That is our time for this evening. We will see you all out there again when we dive into chapter 4. So until then, have a great night, everybody.
And if you're local, we'll see you at the tables. Have a good night, all.